Welcome to another episode of DAP Relationships. I am Nicole Powell. I serve as the Community Education Manager for the Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County.
Hey everyone, my name is Veronica Lynch and I am the Outreach Awareness Specialist. Today, we're going to be talking about red flags on dating apps and, how to spot red flags early.
Yeah, we will be totally transparent in this moment, but also very helpful because it's different given our profession and the conversations we tend to facilitate in our communities on behalf of our agency and on behalf of domestic violence awareness in general.
Right.
And so, again, we'll be very transparent and open and, it's time to get real.
It's time to get real. That's like the perfect way to get into it,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone likes talking about being on a dating app, but we are.
So, yeah, we'll be very transparent and say, like, we're both very much not in relationships in this moment and have explored the options on dating apps, and here we are. I personally have never been a fan. My best friend encouraged it, and till this day, they're like, yeah, I don't recommend it.
Right.
But you made me get it.
Right. And it is really odd because of the jobs that we have. Like, I'll be 100% honest. A lot of the education, things that we talk about every day, it's hard not to apply that to just regular conversations that I'm having with people. And I tend to get, icked. I see that people are like, ugh, I got the ick. Like when you're talking to someone like pretty fast, it could be just one thing, but who knows if those are actual red flags or that's just me being like, okay, gross.
Maybe a little bit of both. There are some things that you just shouldn't say to people.
Right.
And I guess in general, introducing yourself to anybody is awkward. And I guess people in general don't know what to say or how to approach someone. So I know we both have Hinge. That is our dating app of choice in this moment. What have your pickup lines been like?
It's the things people say to me are red flags in itself. Okay, it feels like a form of dating violence.
All we know is we don't appreciate it. That's
yeah. A lot of the times they can be really crude, right? It's like people automatically saying, they're setting the tone and it's a sexual tone.
Right.
And to me, that is a red flag because that's crossing a boundary when you don't even know someone. And that's something that I really do look for when I'm talking to a person on a dating app is if they suggest like meeting up in person within 5 minutes of us talking. And then I say like, I'm not comfortable with that right now. And if they continue to push it, automatically, I'm not going to continue to talk to this person because that's me setting a boundary and this person already dismissing it without even us having to pick a time or place or ever see each other in person. You have decided that the boundaries I set don't matter. So that's something I look for. But I mean, I don't even know if I could say the things that people have sent to me on here since this is a professional podcast. But it's just, I want people to think, I'm going to say this one thing. If you're going to type out a message and you're going to send it to a person, assume I will screenshot it and send it to your mom. And if you're not okay with your mom reading it, don't send it to me.
Well said.
That's what I
gotta say. I mean, well said. Yeah. And again, those boundaries are important. And that's one of the things we tend to, communicate to our students specifically.
Right.
Communicate what is not going to work for you. Please don't feel pressure to do anything, especially physically with someone if you are not comfortable with it. And even in adulthood, like people push boundaries to no end. And it's like, did you not think about what you were going to say before you said it?
Right.
And like you said, to a complete stranger, it's bad enough to be in a relationship with someone, or hard enough rather, to be in a relationship with an individual who does not respect boundaries. But it's even worse to start off in hopes to having a healthy relationship just completely sideways.
And I think we're in a different position because we educate people on what these red flags are, right?
Yeah.
We teach communication skills and we talk about this stuff day in and day out. But if you haven't had these conversations before ever, it can be really easy to fall into like this cycle again, because some people take that aggressive, right, approach as, oh, that means they really like me. They really want to see me. They are really passionate about me. But we see it as, okay, this person doesn't respect boundaries. They're just going to do what they want to do. And they aren't considering how you truly feel in that moment.
Yeah, I will say I have been extremely fortunate with the messages I've received like firsthand. Like one recently was simply, "Hey, how are you? I just want to say that you're really beautiful. If you don't mind me saying, I don't mind you saying."
I like that. That's nice.
You know, not saying I actually responded. However,
okay,
it's a lot of energy. This is like another something people don't tell you about dating apps. It's mentally and emotionally draining.
Yeah.
The energy you have to put into it to court somebody or be courted by an individual and also be open-minded to the madness you might encounter.
Right. It's scary.
There's a lot of
I'm gonna meet. You can be crazy.
you don't know. You just don't know. You're just going into like a world of unknown. And again, not saying that we respond to a lot of these things, good or bad, but the bad ones were like, really?
Right.
Really?
Like assume I am telling everyone about you in the worst ways.
Because we are.
What happens when you send me these messages? I'll be screenshotting it and sending it to my friends. And we'll be talking about it.
Because we are.
Yeah. It's insane.
I mean, like I have another friend who is on it, who's on like Be Okay, which is a dating app for Black singles. And they were like, I got 161 messages and likes, and I don't like none of them. I'm like,
161.
First of all,
wow.
You're popular. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Seriously.
However, how do you not find one?
Right.
You know, and their response was, well, they just seem boring. Mm-hmm. They don't seem interested. But at the same time, again, like we tell our students, you don't want to put anything out there that's going to be misconstrued or, you know, again, putting out something or maybe like over sexualized videos. Like we're a big thing on no sexting. Sexting is a big, big no-no, but it's extremely popular, unfortunately.
With kids.
And adults. And adults, but especially specifically our children, because, you know, we have to protect them from all types of legalities that can come with that.
Definitely.
So we have to be careful, like what you put out there. I mean, because even you've gotten some interesting responses from the very simple pictures you post.
Yeah. Just selfies. Just me smiling. That's it.
And they just take it too far.
Well, one thing too, I think when we talk about like looking for red flags, and like you said with your friends saying, you know, they're finding no one they like. We also have to reflect on what we're putting out there, like you said, and how does that come across? So just as much as I'm like, you know, laughing at the messages people send me, you know, it's fun. I do take what I say seriously because I don't want a tone to come across that I didn't mean, you know, because when you are texting somebody, once you put it out there, it's out there and you don't get to like explain it again and again because that tone can be misconstrued. So it's important that we're also self-reflecting on our behaviors and how we come across and that we don't just always put the blame on another person because that's not healthy either. Just because, and you know, Nicole and I will always say this again and again, just because we do this job does not mean that we always exhibit the healthiest behaviors. We are also people and, you know, we are always learning, but a big part of learning is self-reflection. So when it comes to dating apps, if things aren't working out, maybe it's you.
I don't know. I think we do pretty great dating behaviors if I say so myself. Right. No, kidding. No. Yeah, we are ever learning, especially in these positions. And again, there's being like out there in this tumultuous world of singlehood in our own right.
What is your biggest red flag?
My biggest red flag, one person sent me like, hey, you down to do something spontaneous? Not right now.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm at work.
Like, don't get me wrong, spontaneity is my jam.
Right.
But again, we're complete strangers. Like, tell me what spontaneity looks like to you first. Or like your idea of spontaneous and my idea of spontaneous may be two completely different things. And you don't know what I like, what I would consider to be a good adventure, to be, something random to do just a whim. But of course, a red flag in general for anybody would be like, how do you simply communicate? Like, how are we communicating in these conversations when we do quote unquote match and send, these back and forth messages? So how are we talking? How are you attempting to get to know me? How do you foresee us getting to know each other? What does that look like? For me, as you all know, or as you know, he's like, I am a traveler. So if you tell me you're traveling, I can tell you some hot spots to go to, especially if you're like a fan of Atlanta. I'm telling you where all the places to go.
Right.
So like that is cool, but like start there.
Exactly.
So and I say that's a big thing because if I know you can communicate like this, then I foresee a healthy, positive potential relationship. Again, these matches are a little bit draining because all they do is like your photo. You're like, okay, now what?
Yeah, exactly. And then you'll be like, hey, like to introduce, and I feel like I'm in middle school again. I don't know. I feel like such a nerd talking to people sometimes because it's also, like I said, how you communicate. Like, what are the questions you are asking me about myself? What do you want to get to know about me in that first exchange? And also, what information are you presenting about yourself? I think now, because we have social media, it makes it different too, because you can link your social media to your dating apps. So people can find, I don't do that, but people can find even more information about you without even knowing you ever, right? They already have access to what your friends look like, what you do on the weekend. So there's like less need to actually communicate those things. So I do think that there's a loss of communication skills because of that. So I think it's like, things get lost in translation because we aren't practicing what we share about ourselves, how we sit there and actively listen to a person and what we are seeking in them. So, because I can already look at your Instagram and I get to know your vibe. And then I can be like, oh, don't ever need to talk to you again because I don't like what you do.
Yeah. And that was a part of it too. Social media is the new dating app as well. Cause like Facebook has like a dating app too, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, when people, even if you aren't on a dating app and you fortunately meet someone traditionally just out and about, and their first instinct is to not only ask for your contact information, but also your social media handle.
That's actually really funny you brought that up. So, because, I'm out here dating around, I was talking to my friend. So, we were talking about when is the right time to follow a person? Like, when is too soon? And I was like, this is such a dumb thing to be talking about. But it's true, though, because it like plays into every time. So, even that's another boundary, how you guys interact with each other on social media. There's just so much that goes into it.
Oh gosh.
And I can't keep up.
The one time I kind of hope my best friends are not listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'm putting all of their business out there. So I have a friend, and they are dating an individual who they met on a dating app, and they follow each other immediately. Right. And this individual is different from any other person that my friend has dated, meaning like communication wise. So they may not talk as often as they would prefer.
Gotcha.
And what happens is if they don't hear from them, they see their social media and see that they're active on social media, and then it starts some internal struggles. And I'm like, maybe you want to no longer follow them on social media, right? So you don't pose a problem for you and you all together. So how about you just maybe take a break? Because I think a lot of reasons why too, a lot of relationships have these challenges are due to social media and insecurities and people's preconceived notions, opinions, and also insecurities or baggage that go along with whatever is put out there for social media and its purpose of how to court people or how people put themselves out there for a certain standard, right? And we talk about this with our kids all the time. Like, be careful what you post. Be careful who you share your access information to. There's a
And
lot
we've seen how social media is used as a power and control tactic.
all the
Right.
time.
So and that's what came to mind when you were saying that, is that, yeah, people will wait to see when you're posting, how often you're posting, looking to where are you posting from? You're not at your house, going to those details as a way to control your behavior. So, if we are noticing those things, I think that's a good thing to like step in and be like, this isn't the healthiest thing. If someone's allowed to not talk to you in that moment, right? We don't need constant access to a person. But that's the thing with dating apps and social media, is that that's what it is, because you get the notification. So the idea is that once you see the notification, you're supposed to immediately respond. So again, it's like being upfront and honest about what do we expect when it comes to communicating and talking. What do I want from you as a partner to respond to me? I think those are things that, of course, you don't have it on the first date, because that's a little like psycho, but
Is it?
I guess maybe like it depends how you approach it, right? If we're going into it, be like, well, since you're clearly my boyfriend now, this is XYZ what I want. But it comes up if you are establishing a relationship. I think that's a good thing to have. Or if you notice that it's bothering you, be like, hey, like this is what I see. This is how it makes me feel. I don't know if maybe we could talk about it and see how are you visualizing this moving forward. It's just a good time to sit down and have that conversation, I think.
Yeah, I think too, again, social media is a major can be used as a major tool of power and control that we see in unhealthy and healthy relationships. And so what we encourage individuals, again, like you do not have to share all of your access information on your telephone, like your cell phone. If you have a lock or password on your telephone, you have the right to keep that to yourself. You have the right to, again, have things private to yourself, even though you are in a relationship. We also encourage individuals, again, to be careful what you send your partners, even though you're in an intimate relationship with them. Because oftentimes what we hear a lot is, that idea of revenge and sending things or posting things or even including other family or friends to harass a former partner. And that can be really scary. So really be careful how and what, where and when. If you have friends, one of the safety planning things we typically give out is, if you have friends and y'all are out together, that your friend is in an unhealthy relationship, be careful. Be careful when you post them and where you post them, because you may expose things that they may not want to be out there.
Exactly.
For one reason or another. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, thinking about it in the form of red flags before you know a person. I guess that would be a red flag for me if somebody was already looking and asking me questions about what I'm posting. I'd be like, well, who are all these people you're posting with? And, all those things. That would be a red flag for me.
This isn't, and I can't even say this is a red flag yet, but I'm curious to see where it goes. So again, full transparency, my cousin is getting married soon. I'm in her wedding, and she literally like texted me today or last night, whatever, yesterday or today, saying, hey, there's this person I want you to meet at the wedding. And I'm like, since when are you playing matchmaker here?
Right.
And literally, I look on Instagram because I'm looking at messages and stuff, and I see this random person request to follow me. And I see that she follows him. And I'm like, is this the person you're talking about?
Right.
She's like, oh my gosh, she's following me already. I'm like, yeah, I don't know who this is, but okay. But I saw you follow him, so I'm assuming this is who you're referring to.
Yeah.
But again, guy follows me, hasn't said anything.
So you're just gonna be in this limbo until the wedding?
The wedding's in October. Okay. I mean, still, like, I don't know. Like,
listen, dating is not for the faint of heart.
And you know me well enough to know, like, I'm not a big social media person, so
right, you're not.
I don't have a lot of posts for you to look at on my Instagram and say, yep, she's not a good fit, or she is,
Yeah.
Good luck.
It's so funny because that's what, my friend and I were talking about today at lunch. She's like, oh, because I went on 2 dates with this guy. I was like, I think I can follow him now. And her was like, no, that's too early. And I was like, that's not a rule. And I just like went and like did it. But it's like, everyone has different expectations
For
on what
sure.
this looks like. Like, I wouldn't follow someone I've never met before. But again, for some people, it's like, oh, with this, you've went on 2 dates. That's still too early to follow. This is a so tangent. That's different than what we were originally, but it just has to be said. People listening to this probably like, okay, this is rambling.
I mean, and please feel free to share your experiences too, because we're all learning. Again, as educators, we're just learning what does and does not work for us. Yeah. And it's just hard. Yeah,
It's also hard to spot red flags like when you're texting, because someone's energy over the phone can be so different than when you're with them in person. So that's why it's always important to, give people also room to realize, like, okay, they might be a little awkward over the phone, and then you meet them in person, giving them room to like come into their shell a little bit. But being vigilant, I think, is important.
For sure. Like we said, like, be careful how they are speaking to you, how they approach you.
Love bombing is a big thing if you're starting relationships.
Love bombing?
It's like when you meet someone and then things move so quick, so fast. So they are already being like, wow, I think you're amazing. You're the best person I've ever met. This could be within like a week of you meeting. And then I want to be with you now. And then setting that relationship. And then you might notice that other power and control tactics coming in and be like, well, I want you to see me all the time. Or, why would you want to see them if we're spending our time together? Like, it's not coming across as like a menacingly, like, I'm doing this to control you. It's because I love you and I want to be with you. But it's all under that guise of love.
Yeah.
And putting that onto a person.
Yeah, we see that a lot, especially like with young people.
Right.
Because as we all know, or should know, but we're learning that, the domestic violence doesn't just happen so quickly. Like, the first step, like we see in our TED Talks that we present sometimes, is like, the first step is to seduce you into believing that you are such a charming partner, or they're such a charming partner and individual, which they just might be. But also they will, again, isolate you. So be careful when you do get into these relationships and you start doing dating, like, be open and transparent with your friends, like Veronica and I are with our friends. Because that way too, as friends, or as a support group as well, we can also help identify what may be, a red flag too. Because if I see that you're no longer hanging out with me as a friend, I'm now concerned, or we haven't spoke as often as we typically do. Red flag. That's
a good opportunity for bystander intervention.
Right.
I think that there's this narrative, and we discussed this in a past episode. Bystander intervention does not literally mean getting in between a person while they're fighting, right? Like, it could be what it looks like, but again, it's just small things, right? We see our friends aren't talking to us as much as they used to, or hanging out with us, or when they do hang out with us, they're on their phone the whole time with their new partner. Just checking in and leaving that door open for them to share something with you. That's the biggest form of bystander intervention and the most helpful. And, if it is your friend on a dating app and they're going out on dates, and then you notice that maybe their behavior might be a little risky, just being like, hey, I'd like to have your location during this time, just so I know you're good. And it's so funny as we're talking about that, because I got a Hinge notification just popped up. I have a job, people. That's another thing. Everyone's on this app during the day. I have a job.
Yeah, no, that's a good, I love the bystander intervention thing, because even like, again, like my best friend, when they start dating a new person, like, I just need you to meet them, and once you meet them, I think I'll feel better. And I've gotten a chance to meet them, and they're really, really dope. And again, my main thing for them, like, yo, this person knows how to communicate and talk to you. There is nothing that they're going to hold back. They don't talk in circles. You just simply have to ask the clear-cut question, and they are like, all right, I got your answer. And in the past, that has not been her experience. So I'm really excited to see she's actually learning to open up more, which I'm so excited to hear.
We have to unlearn those behaviors ourselves. When we're used to a certain, type of behavior, getting a new behavior could be really disconcerting, right? Someone being like, if this is me, and then I'm suddenly getting these straightforward answers, my first reaction might be like, oh, but that's a lie. And you're looking for the reason why that isn't true. But then it's just because you're used to being lied to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think in in those past experiences were a lot of, again, emotional and verbal power and control tactics. I remember sharing with her, I was like, yo, one of the red flags I would never forget in one of your previous relationships was this individual was threatening to harm themselves. And they were like, I totally forgot about that situation. Like, I will never forget it. Because for us, that's a red flag.
Major red flag.
I mean, like, extremely scary. And her automatic response, as typically is, well, I don't feel comfortable leaving this person because I don't know what they're going to do to themselves. But my thing is, okay, well, how, do you feel safe? You know?
Right. Yeah, like we can still care for a person, we still, and then keep ourselves safe. So if someone is saying these things, there are resources that we can give. Like, here, if this is how you're feeling, call this number. There are welfare checks. If that is a genuine concern, we can always do a welfare check. But always keeping in mind, sometimes calling the police is not the safest option. So finding the resources that would be safe. So if it is a mobile crisis team, or if it's providing a national suicide number, something like that, we don't have to be in the situation to still provide support. Our safety still matters, and there are ways to stay safe, but still providing that support that we need to make sure that we feel comfortable at the end of the day too.
Yeah. And because I guess all of my friends were all kind of in this lifestyle of being single, and it's a struggle. And so with that being said, again, I have a friend who's on the dating app Bumble, where it is the female's responsibility to reach out. And because this lovable person of mine is so into gender norms.
Okay.
That is like, I'm proud of her for even putting it out there, but it's still a struggle for us.
Aww.
She's like, all right, once I get this conversation going, like, it's on you now. And we talk about gender norms all the time and how we're so trying to shift that conversation. So what do you think about being the first one to make the move?
I feel like that has been my experience on Hinge, is that I'm usually sending the first message. Like, you can invite people to send it first, but I like to send it first because I just think I'm funnier. So like, I like the things I'm saying to people. I don't like what people are saying to me. So I don't know if it's a gender norm thing or it's just me being like, Veronica, you get funnier every time. Like, I think it's just, and that's one of my things on my Hinge profile. It says like, oh, I'll perform a stand-up comedy act over text or something. And people are always like, prove it. I'm like, the minute someone says that, you're done. I'm not gonna prove anything to you. I don't need to. Like, but yeah, like, I think that's just a Veronica thing. But I can also see people not being used to that, like, pressure, I guess, is what it feels like having to set the tone and really open the door, and it being a good way. You want to entice this person to talk to you. That's a lot of pressure. I think this idea that men always need to do it I'm done with that, because I don't really like a lot of things men say to me.
You really don't. I'm like, Veronica, it's not that bad.
To work, and I'm like, Nicole.
I'm like, what is that? What's the problem? I'm like, okay.
I know. Yeah.
And I'll even play devil's advocate. Like, we're like the homegirl and I are friends for a reason. Like, I'm wrong. If I start the conversation, I need you to keep it going.
Absolutely.
Because you can't be stale. If you can't talk to me like a Veronica, I can't. We can't vibe. And exactly. I need you to be able to vibe. Like, again, I can start off the conversation. What I'm learning too from guys and girls is that you have to be explicit with what you want. Like,
that's true.
I like you, I don't like you, I want this, I don't want that. Like, you have to say it or show it very clearly. Otherwise, it's not going to be received. Like, you can't assume people can read your mind.
And that's such a good blanket thing for any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a working thing, like romantic, anything. People can't read your mind. And if you can't communicate your needs and wants, you can't expect that stuff to just be picked up. Because that's another toxic thing, is to be mad when your expectations aren't met, but you weren't clear about your expectations. How are we, who is that helping? So I think that's just like, it's a great thing for everyone, whether it's like this is the first time you're meeting a person or you've been friends for years. We can't expect that people just automatically know what we're going through or what we want from a person.
That's an extremely toxic behavior.
Yeah.
That
it's a way to guilt a person, right? We see that too. That's like a form of emotional abuse.
A lot of people experience it more often than not. And I think that's what people don't realize is a unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
It so is.
And I'm clear, like, if I'm looking for like to go on a date, like I want to go out. If you're asking me out and then you're like, well, you can come to my house and watch a movie or something. No, I'm not doing that. And because then my expectations are if we're meeting, we're going out to a nice place, like we can sit and talk for a little while. But if that's not what you want and we're clear about that up front, then we know that this is not going to work for us and we can go our separate ways. Yeah.
Well, another popular app that we are officially addicted to that we just learned is the new dating app is TikTok.
Yeah. Everyone, it's so unhealthy.
Is it though?
I mean, as an adult woman, the amount of time that I am spending on this app. Yes, unhealthy. But yeah, a lot of people, I see like, you see the popular couples on TikTok. They become like celebrity couples.
So I've seen like families and some couples and like best friends who do a lot of heavy flirting, and people are like, why y'all not already married? Y'all playing games. Yeah. And then I also see the TikToks where they're like, oh, I just met my new boo on TikTok, like shoot your shot. And I'm just like, and I'm looking at some of these TikToks with some very attractive people, and I'm like, but I see thousands of messages and comments here. Right. I'm not shooting any shot.
Yeah.
Missed it.
I'm drowning. Okay. And all these comments. There's this one person on TikTok whose their whole account is their experiences on dating apps. And, she documents going on dates and, the messages. So her thing, and I respect this a lot. She does like ethical non-monogamy. So she's upfront. She's like, I'm not looking for a relationship. I want to date, like, and I want to date multiple people. And if you're not okay with that, then this isn't going to work for us. So I really I think that's the healthiest thing you can do, right? She's not tricking anyone. She's not being anything other than herself. And she documents like the before, during, and after a date. And I love it.
And these are dates that she's gotten off of apps?
Yeah, on like Hinge and Bumble and things like that. And she'll rate other people's pages. And she'll be harsh. She'll be like, this is a horrible picture.
Oh, no.
But I mean, it is like a formula for things. I think we're coming at it in an approach of like, okay, how do we be healthy? How do we communicate in healthy ways? She's like, this is authentic. I'm dating to date and have fun, So it's two different approaches, but I think both are valid and important.
Yeah, I've seen TikToks where, like you said, they're documenting their dating experience, whether it be from a dating app or even like sugar baby, sugar daddy type lifestyles. Yeah. And I've also seen, of course, people who have like been ghosted. They are flying cross country or over states and places to meet people and connect with them. There are also people who travel and still aren't able to connect with these random people they just met. So again, how can we be smart and really because I think any way you put it, you're going to take a risk.
Right.
But how can we ensure that to a certain degree that these risks are worth taking and that they develop again into healthy versus unhealthy relationships? That's the hard part.
What was I going to Right. Right. So it can be really hard too, because I think a big thing is also not putting pressure on ourselves. And that can be something that leads to an unhealthy relationship, automatically having this pressure and ideas of things not looking like how we think they're going to look. And social media really plays a role into that. But I think going back to what we're talking about, gender norms, I do see gender norms acted out a lot on apps. And I think the biggest thing that I see, and I, Veronica, am guilty of this, and you know this, but like people being about their height, like this idea of men are not tall, right? And I am moving away from that, but I do see that. There's jokes about like if your height doesn't start with 6, like don't raise your voice at me. You see memes like that. And so I think women have the gender norms of having to automatically come across as like really polite over dating apps. And that is something I've seen too. I don't know if it's just a Veronica thing, but people will, because on Hinge, there's a prompt that says like, give yourself an award. So I gave myself the hottest yet most anxious award. And people automatically say like, oh, like, so you have an ego. And, women and egos are not things that and I'm like, okay, yeah, so what? Like that doesn't, I don't see that as I don't think being confident and feeling good is a bad thing, but that's like something that we don't automatically associate with women. And so I do see those gender norms like picked up or like played upon, whether it's men having to be bigger and stronger and women being like nicer, more polite. So I just thought about that while we were talking about gender norms.
Yeah, that, and as we encourage ourselves to do and encourage others to do as well, is to have that conversation around shift regarding gender norms and dating in general, because some people prefer, and we kind of had a conversation earlier on a panel, about how some individuals, male, female, or anyone who may not also subscribe to the gender binary, some people in general are just more dominant than others. Right? In their ways on dating apps to kind of like portray that. Right. And if you're into it, you're into it, ego aside. Like that wouldn't be the first question I would think that would be asked of you. But again, if they're into it, then I would assume that they will, match and things will progress.
What gender norms do you see played out
on dating apps? Gender norms I see played out on, besides the attempt to shift who makes the first move on Bumble, right. I think that's pretty dope. What I also appreciate, which is not weird, but it's still new for most folks, is the option to choose who you're interested in. So you don't have to be interested in just one gender or sex,
right?
Which is dope.
Hinge is cool because you put your pronouns in it in your profile, which I think is awesome. And it has like you get to put whatever you feel comfortable with, and I think that's part about normalizing that conversation, because I think people, their fear is, how do I ask that? How do I approach that? And look, now it's done for you. Now you know.
Yeah, in fact, I saw someone who was so brave enough to even put their after surgery pictures.
Oh wow.
Of transitioning on Hinge. I was like, now that's dope.
Right.
I'm here for it. That's brave. Definitely. And I'm also now on TikTok too. Like there's a huge trans community on TikTok, which I love. Yeah. Learning a lot. These drag queens put all people to shame every time.
So if we could, I guess, we could summarize our red flags and like good things. How I think the biggest thing we always ever talk about, and you'll hear us talk about it again and again, is communication.
Period.
How does a person talk to you? How are you talking to people? And I think 2 for me is like boundaries. Upfront, how does this person react to your boundaries? How do they move forward with that? I think that's really important. And 3, also just remembering, do we feel safe? Trusting our instincts. If you're talking to someone and you're getting a weird feeling, we can block them right then and there. And I think a lot of times, I think this is a gender norm put onto women on apps, is not wanting to be rude. And so they continue to talk to someone because they don't want to be right. Not Nicole and I. I block people all the time. But I think that's where people will put aside their own safety and feelings of safety for another person. But that's, at the end of the day, we're the only people that we have, in our own bodies. And so we have to be safe too.
Yeah. And of course, my favorite conversation topic is, of course, the safety planning around being on these dating apps and experiencing different people and different energies in general. As crazy as some people may think, please communicate these things to your friends or coworkers like Veronica and yourself because you just never know. I'd rather be safe than sorry, again, be as safe as possible. Like, I think in general, you're going to take risks, but please communicate them. We will do our best to upgrade our lifestyle and experience this professionally and personally to match the experiences people may be having as relates to toxic relationships and domestic violence, because it's a thing. What's that show we love? You. If you haven't seen You on Netflix, you're definitely missing out. It's really, really dope. And we might do a podcast about that later too. Yeah. But yeah, just let people know how you're doing and what you're doing and who you're doing it with. Yeah. Because it's a community effort. It's a team effort to really keep people safe and to educate. And so that's why agencies like ours exist.
And our biggest goal is prevention. So if you are dating someone and you have like a feeling, give us a call. We have a hotline. Our number is 610-565-4590. Nice. I literally was like, what? The numbers in my brain got like all jumbled up while I was saying that. Happens. But yeah, what Nicole and I want, our biggest thing is to end this. So, and part of ending it is having conversations, trusting our instincts, calling someone, you do not have to be in the middle of crisis to call our hotline and just talk, and it could be about, hey, I went on this date, I saw these behaviors, and we'll just listen and we'll talk about it with you. And we might not have the best answer that you could ever ask for, but we'll try our hardest.
No, legit. If someone calls a hotline and I'm on hotline that day, that would be a really dope conversation to have.
Yeah. I'd be like, thank you so much for asking.
Yeah.
Down, Yeah. But that's the point, is that we want these conversations to be easy, to be comfortable, and for you to have a resource to go to. So if you don't have friends or family that you feel, maybe we're on an app and we're not out yet, and so we can't go to our friends and family and talk about that, you can always call us and we'll talk about it with you. So don't ever feel, uncomfortable to reach out.
And that goes for, again, friends or family too. So we've had callers call and say, hey, I have a friend or family member who's in this kind of scenario. I have questions. How do I kind of help support them through it? We love those talks too.
Right.
Yeah. So if you are not already following us on all the social media platforms that we are referring to, please do so. Follow us at DapDelco on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. And be careful on what you do and how you do it on social media. But until next time, we are Relationships with Dap. And don't forget
to keep it real.
Thank you, guys.